Hello and welcome to Yerushalmi Berachos Daf Memches. A couple of very interesting aras about tefillah that are in contrast specifically to the Bavli, which what I want to focus on today. First of all, the Gemara says, "Mikan amru hamispal v'lo nena tzarach tainis." If somebody davens and they aren't answered, they should fast. Now, as far as I know, the Gemara in Bavli, certainly in Berachos, as far as I know, does not discuss this at all. Of course, we know that fasts are very important. But this is an interesting chazal. Chazal in the Bavli say that a person that is mispal isn't answered should be mispal again, which I think we've discussed that, and if not, I mentioned it a lot. And then Rav Mana adds another thing. Rem is the Talmud Chacham, which is a machlok is exactly how to read that, but this alludes to the importance of tefillah of a Talmud Chacham. Shadam tzarach lomer l'rabo tishma tefillasech. That a person should say to his Rebbe, "I give you a bracha that Hashem should answer your tefillas." Some of the Mefarshim say that this is actually similar to the Gemara Bava Basra, the Bavli, on Daf Kuf Yud Kuf Tes Zayin, Kuf Tes Vav and Tes Zayin, Amud Aleph, that says that if a person is mispal and wasn't answered, he should go to a chacham either to teach him how to daven or to pray on his behalf. So you see this in the Yerushalmi as well. Wanted to make note of that. Very interesting. A couple of other ha'aras about Shmoneh Esrei that we talk about. Okay, so first of all, we know that when we daven Shmoneh Esrei nowadays 3 times a day, it's actually really 19 brachos, and that's because the bracha of Lamal Shinim was added later on. There's a whole discussion about this, but just a quick Mara Makom, you should definitely take a look in the Tosefta, because that's what's being discussed here. And the Bavli says clearly that there are 19, and it's called Shmoneh Esrei because that last one was added, and Yavne Ki Yadua. The Yerushalmi does seem to say clearly that there's actually only 17 and that an 18th one was added. And this is actually very, very significant. So the Makar for this is a Tosefta in Berachos, Perek Gimel, Os Chaf Hey. And it's very, very short, so I want to read the whole thing very quickly. And even though the Gemara quotes it here, there's a huge machlokas Rishonim on what the exact girsa is. So just keep that in mind when you're doing the blot, but it's very, very fascinating to see it. And it's like this. Shmoneh Esrei she'amru chachamim keneged Shmoneh Esrei haskaros shebahavu l'Hashem b'nei elim. So we'll talk about that in a moment. That why are there 18 brachos? What is a keneged? There's a lot of different significances in the Bavli and the Yerushalmi, which we'll get to Be'ez Hashem shortly. V'kol shel minim b'shel prushim, and you say the bracha against the minim in the bracha of prushim. B'shel gerim, and you say the bracha on gerim b'shel zakenim, which again we have some is kol val gera et tzedek etc. B'shel David b'Yerushalayim. And it combines that bracha of Daven Yerushalayim. Open up a siddur, you'll see exactly what it's referring to. Or concentrate on davening, you'll see. But if you say them separately, Yatza, you're Yotze. Okay? So just be aware of that Tosefta, because that is really the huge makar here. And of course, there's a lot of different machlogas girsos. So let's explain. So one Shita says, let me just skip over here for a second. Okay. So the Gemara says that one opinion about Shmoneh Esrei is keneged. Rabbi Simon says keneged Shmoneh Esrei chulio shebesedra, that it's keneged the 18 vertebrae in the spine. And again, we're going to have to explain what the significance of 17 is or 19 kiyadua. There's a lot of mafarshim to try to explain that in the Bavli and as well. And why is that significant? Because kol atzmosai tamarna michamocha. We have to daven to Hashem with our entire body. There's so many very, very important things to say here. Another opinion says, this is actually the first one, Rishuma Levi says, Keneged Shmoneh Esrei Mizmaros. Shakasav meirosho shaltilim ad yancha shem yom tzara. This the Bavli brings down as well. It's the 18 times, the 18 parakim of Tehillim. So again, the simple pshat is that davening to Hashem is a huge tefillah. And the Gemara itself asks him, Yormelcha Adam Tisha Esrei. There's really 19, which again, the Bavli, a lot of people say that it's Maramis, that they're really 19, but according to Yerushalmi, it's actually really 17, so it's problematic. So Emerlo, Lama Rikshu Gayim less hu minhon. That doesn't actually count. And again, there's a whole discussion over here in the Charedim and other Mefarshim exactly how this fits in and what it means. And there's a Masoros about how Tehillim should be broken up, but think about that when you're doing it. And again, that's why in the juxtaposition it says Mispal of Lonana Tzarach Tainis, he should fast. That's what's being explained, because that's part of a Tehillim that is being Maramis to Shmoneh Esrei itself. Then Rabbi Simon says it's connected to Chulios, which again makes sense because you're davening to Hashem Kol Atzmosai with your entire body. Rav Levi says connected Shmoneh Esrei Azkaros Shakasav V'Havel Hashem B'nei Elim, which is very interesting because there's a question on that, which Rav Huna asked that really there's 17, so not 18. So it says that Shel Minim Kvar Kabul Chacham B'Yavne. So the Yerushalmi itself says that really there are 18 because we added a bracha. Again, there's really 19, but the Yerushalmi holds that Shmoneh Esrei is different than the Bavli, which is interesting. You see different nuschos in Shmoneh Esrei. So Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi asks, it says Kela Kavod Hirim. What about Kela Kavod? That's also a Haskara of Hashem's name. So Ayin Sham. I'm not going to go into all the Mefarshim, but obviously that name of Hashem is not as significant, so to speak, as the other Shemos of Hashem, whatever that means, and that somehow is being merames to Berachos Aminim. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to quote, which again ties into this and needs an explanation, is that, I'm sorry, I skipped. Rav Chanina says in the name of Rav Pinchas, Keneged Shmoneh Esrei Pam Sheba Avos Kesuvim Batorah, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. The 18 times that you find the names Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. If you have access to the Yerushalmi by Schottenstein, the article one, you can take a look. They actually list off every one, and it's very important. There's actually about 21 times that it happens, and there's a whole discussion about which ones count, which ones don't count, etc. For example, like do you count Zachar Avram Yitzchak Yisrael Avadecha because it says Yisrael, and how you would go through all of Shmoneh Esrei. The last thing I want to say is that actually when the Gemara says that on a fast day there's 24 brachos, which are mentioned here and also in the Mishnah and Tainus, so that's interesting to explain why 24. So there is a makar, which is the a very famous shita. Hang on, let me just find it. Sefer Hasidim. That Sefer Hasidim writes that in all of Torah Nevi'im and Kesuvim, there's 24 times, 24 psukim, that all three of the avos are mentioned. And so that could be a remez to this exact thing about Tainus. I don't think he says that there, but that's what I was thinking, that maybe that's why. Because the point is that, what does it mean that you're saying Shem Hashem? That when you're davening to Hashem, you're trying to evoke his Midas HaRachamim. Havaya is Midas HaRachamim. Certainly other names also. I'm not going to go into all the Shemas of Hashem because I'm certainly not an expert. Everybody knows the famous Gra about Aleph Lamed and Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, the addition in the beginning of Parshas Balak, Ayin Sham, Kiyadua. So the point is that whenever we're davening, we're looking for these pshatim that have to do with what we learn the brachos of Shmoneh Esrei from. Obviously, teach us a lot about the Shmoneh Esrei itself and what to think about. Exactly why is that significant? Why do we learn out the amount of brachos based on that amount of time or that number? All right, have a great day.